guys, bienvenidos a mi canal. Recently, I had to fix one of my thick knit sweaters because the yarn was starting to unravel from the front side and the back. And I thought, why not show you guys how to fix that if that ever happens to you. It is a quick, easy way to do it, and I'm gonna do this by hand, so you don't need any sewing machine or anything else. So let me show you. So the tools you'll need are a pair of scissors, a needle, the thread color of your knit garment, and a seam ripper in case you make any stitch mistakes. Now I do want to clarify that there's many different ways to fix this type of problem, and there's really no wrong or right way. As long as it looks good, you're good. With that being said, I will show you the quickest, easiest, and least expensive way to fix this. First, I cut about 36 inches of thread and folded the thread in half. From one of the loose ends, I pushed the thread in the needle hole and pulled the thread through the hole until I got to the half length of the thread. After that, I tied the two loose ends together by making a secure knot. After examining the problem area, I noticed that the collar is detaching from the body of the sweater because the yarn that is supposed to attach the collar and body together got unwoven. So I will hand sew the front and back side of this area separately. I commence with the back side of this area. I locate the last loop chain of yarn that's attaching the collar and body together. I insert the needle behind the knit where it's not visible to the eye when viewing the collar from the right side. And I make sure that I'm stitching on the last loop chain of the yarn to avoid it from unweaving in the future. I then stitch down 1/4 of an inch away from the initial stitch hole I made, and I direct the needle backwards towards the initial stitch hole. Then I make the same stitch on the same area, but this time I leave a loop and direct my needle in the loop, and then pull tight to secure the first stitch. Now for the ongoing stitches, I stitch about 1/2 inch away from where the thread is, then I stitch 1/4 of an inch backwards towards the middle stitch hole, and then pull the thread through. And you repeat the same stitch technique all the way through until you get to the last yarn loop. And to let you know, I am doing this type of stitch because it will give a strong thread hold to the seam. This is kind of like a combination of a split stitch and back stitch. And I regularly check the back to make sure that the thread doesn't appear on the front side of the sweater. And try your very best to follow the seam line that existed before so it doesn't come out all wonky. Once you get close to the last yarn loop that connects the collar to the body of the sweater, you will stitch through the last loophole and direct the needle backwards towards the midpoint hole, just like how you did to the previous stitches. And I stitch one more time on the same stitch hole. To secure the stitch, I make a horizontal stitch and leave a thread loop to direct my needle through. Then, I stitch through the seam and pull the needle through the loophole. And just to add extra security, I stitched again behind the seam to make a loop and pull the needle through. Then cut the excess thread. Now this seam is secured. Next, I will attach the front side of the front collar to the body of the sweater. And remember to make a new knot on your thread. First, I make the first stitch on the last yarn loop from behind the inside of the seam, then stitched back on the same seam. Now, I made a loophole and pulled the needle through to secure this stitch. For the first outer stitch, I went through the last yarn loop through the front side and went back in through a yarn loop of the body of the sweater. Now, I am not doing the same stitch technique I did in the back side of the collar. This time, we're focusing on threading through the yarn loopholes of the collar and through the yarn loopholes of the body of the sweater, basically connecting the yarn loops together by tying them with the thread. Make sure that the stitches at the back are nicely hidden behind the seam and that your front stitches are not visible, and you can do that by tightly connecting the yarn loops together with the thread. If you have a lot of yarn excess, do not cut it off. Instead, push the yarn inside and make a couple more stitches on the parts of the yarn that's puffed up. If your yarn is ripped, then make sure to tie the loose ends into a secure knot and make sure that the thread is tightened around the yarn while going through the yarn loops. Once I stitched on the last yarn loop, I stitched towards the back of the seam and make a loop with the thread. Then pull the needle through the loop to secure this whole stitched seam and cut the excess thread. I replicated the same steps I did on the front collar to the back collar, and this is how it looks from the inside and out. I hope this video helped you out and that you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel by subscribing. If you liked this video, please leave a like, and there's more videos to come, so I'll see you next weekend. Bye!